Welcome back to whatever Chris Brown and I are going to start calling this. We still have no formal title, like the coffee talk thing. But we're letting you into our Monday conversations. Chris and I generally come together and just start the week off with like, hey, what's shaking? We talk about life and politics and franchising and trainings and the things we do for fun. And that's all how you kind of build, like we call rapport. And that kind of kicked off to Chris saying, hey, how about we talk about this? So Chris, what did you think the topic should be about today that we share with our viewers in this little video cast that we're doing?
Thank you very much. That's a great segue. I was thinking more along the lines of, you and I, we both started out in this industry as developers of brands, students about becoming a developer, really, when you think about it. We had mentors and people in our lives and events that we were thrust into that we had no idea what was going on around us. And then we became the ambassadors of these brands that we were representing. And, how did we do that? And I think that's, thus Dvelop Plus. That's why we have our platform here. But the thing I wanted to talk about today was a part of our process as a developer, as a brand ambassador. How do we work with candidates, right? The brand goes out there and somehow or another it gets marketed, promoted, and then all of a sudden people come to the brand and want to know more about it. They want to know how they can franchise. They've come to us to brands from brokers or through their website or through social media platforms or whatever. So a candidate comes to us and they meet us and they are getting to know us just like we're getting to know them. But how do you build credibility with a candidate? Someone who's a stranger off the street, someone you don't know, they don't know you. And there's always, I think, a little bit of skepticism walking into a sales environment, right? And so, what I wanted to talk about today was a little bit of, not only how I build credibility with a candidate, but also, how you do, Danielle, and Dvelop Plus platform, how do we help others learn how to do that?
Yeah.
So,
and you mentioned this, and so just for anybody watching our craziness, right? Like we go through all of these ideas. Well, we should talk about this, and we should talk about that. And we should talk about this, and it's like we're just giving you our mind dump and take it, leave it for whatever it is. And I'm like, credibility is an interesting word, and interesting is an interesting word. But are we building credibility for ourselves? Like, is that necessary in a world of franchising where there are a lot of us that are what we call fractional? So that means we're not on the full-time payroll. We're not getting a paycheck. We're being retained for our services and experience and that credibility you're talking about. So if people that are looking at these businesses, they, I guess, assume, and we know what assumptions do, that we work for the brand, right? So I love your brand ambassador piece. I love those words. But one would think I have credibility because I'm working for the brand or on behalf of the brand. But I also believe, to your point, like we're all kind of, there's a stigma around sales, and we're not used car salesmen, but how do we necessarily break down the barriers or the walls? And that's how you're in my head, that's how this conversation is going, is like, how do we teach someone to kind of trust us? And maybe they shouldn't, right? Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I think a lot of people think that like having years in the industry instantly means that you get that credibility. And I don't know that that's the case. The last conversation we had, right? Just because you've been around a long time doesn't mean you're good. Doesn't mean the franchise is good. Doesn't mean any of those things. So what are a couple of things when you're thinking about like, hey, I'm Joe Schmo and requesting information about business B. I have some hesitancy. Walk me through what kind of you do to break down that barrier, that wall with that.
So I think we all have to begin with a sense of morality, right? I think we have to have our own personal code. And I have built mine on my story. I started out in franchising as a franchisee, and I did my due diligence. I did my investigation. I was on that side of the equation, of the fence, if you want to call it that. So I was talking with someone like me who was, quote unquote, working for the brand. How do you separate? And I'm going to go back over to the developer side now. How do you separate, or how do you create a distinction between, I work for the brand, but I theoretically am a somewhat neutral party, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Those are air quotes. You didn't see that.
You're a business owner like they want to be a business owner, to be honest.
That's right. And so I've always come from the place of, what is it that I would like to know that maybe they would like to know. But what would I like to know before I move forward? So I was an actor in the past life, right?
No, you don't say.
Yes. And so one of the things that we would want to know, it was called the circumstance. What would we want? What do we need to know coming into the thing that if we didn't know, the scene couldn't occur? Like this couldn't happen if I didn't know what I'm about to discover. That's what I try to reveal to franchise candidates, to anyone really, if I'm in a conversation with someone. But the part of it that I think distinguishes maybe me from them, us from them, whatever, is I come from the place of what would I have loved to have known then that I didn't know. It wasn't that I didn't know, well, it was. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what...
We get that a lot. No one knows the questions that they want. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to know? I hate that question by any developer. Like, don't ask a candidate that. They don't know. Like, they don't know. They need you to be the beacon of information, and then they can ask follow-up questions from there, I think.
Well, we're kind of shepherds in a way. We're kind of guides in a way. So we're guiding them through. That's one of the first things I do in a conversation with a candidate is I take them through, this is what the process looks like. Just to set the expectation, to set the tone, that there's structure to the process. There's the beginning, a middle, and an end to a process, one way or the other. And if I'm a developer, and if I'll call it a peak performing developer, I'm going to guide them and hold them accountable to each step in that process. And so if I'm in that conversation and I'm trying to build credibility with them, I am trying to separate myself a little bit from the brand so that they can see me as much as possible as a neutral party. But in order to do that, I'm also, and this is not in a manipulative way, I'm just direct and transparent, sometimes to a fault, with regards to these are the features of the model. These are the things that we feel like distinguish us from them. This is what we do better. This is what we do differently. These are the things that we've done to make this brand a franchisable brand. I'll point those things out, but I'll also point out things like there's fluctuation in pricing. There's market limitations. And there is this thing called the economy that sometimes can affect those parts of the model. I'll say that up front. If you look out, and this is one thing that a friend of mine says, when in doubt, zoom out. If you look at the 365-day window and the 365-day picture, you get a good sense of what those numbers look like in the FDD, in the item 19. And so I sort of tie it back to that. So the whole time I'm just trying to establish some sense of, as much as possible, neutrality in the whole thing, and it doesn't all, we're not always successful in creating that. You said something about a used car salesman earlier. I think there's an element of, perception that we have to head off at the pass.
Anybody in sales, when you have a sales title, it's going to have that. Like, that's just where, and the answer to that is because it's normally negative, right? Because we are, as a society, I think we tend to lean more towards like, hey, the negative is probably more likely what's going to happen to me than the positive of this. We're preparing for the worst case.
Do you ever have a candidate that pushes you on that? Do you ever have someone that you've worked with that said, what am I not asking? What am I not hearing? What are some things that you can point out to me that I don't know already, or I don't even know the question to ask?
Yeah, no, I get that a lot more than you think, right? I don't know what question to ask. What am I, and I do this on the flip side too, because I've put myself in that same situation. I've vetted franchises, I've owned franchises. So I didn't start in franchising owning one, but can't be in franchising a long time without actually saying, hey, what would it look like to own my own franchise? So a lot of us do dip our toes in both of those categories. So to your point, credibility is key. And I've found myself in discovery processes the same. What am I not asking, right? And a lot of times I will lead with the candidate. I say, here's what I haven't heard you say, right? And then it triggers for them. If we go back to the credibility piece of this, I think this is where we are all different and why it makes every developer, their success is your success is different than my success. We're not going to be the cup of tea for every buyer, right? Because there's just, unless you are truly a chameleon that can adapt to every scenario and every person, those are rare, right? We can agree that those people are rare. They're oracles. They're sitting out here in this universe, and there are a handful of them that can basically work with any buyer type. Then I go at it a little bit differently, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm the person that says, you're a person, I'm a person. What pain are you experiencing? What's going on with you? I get to the root of who they are, because the reality is That's how I build rapport. I want to know your story. I want to know where you're coming from. I want to know like what's put you in this situation. What I love about anything that we do development wise is what I try to teach people is like understand the human back into the business. Because if the human is not this, that, or the other, you may already be able to know, because if you are that brand ambassador and you know that brand better than anybody else, you're the first point of contact for excitement. You're also the first point of contact to bring in some reality. But I like riding the train of excitement, inquisitiveness, education. Like they're always generally pretty enthused about, I just want to learn more. Learning gets you to comfort, which gets you to credibility, which gets you to buying. Like you're not going to move forward with something if you haven't really checked those boxes. So for me, it's who are you? What's going on in your life? What's your plan? Like I loved the back out 365. What does the past year look like for you? What do you look like? What do you want the next year to look like for you? Minus all the noise that's going on outside of things that we can't control. I take that human component to a level of we've had a mentor, let me into your story. Like, I want to know about you. I want to know, like, hey, my kids are all going off to college roughly around the same time. Hey, my parents are transitioning into assisted living facilities and now I have to like kind of figure out how I merge my life with theirs. Hey, I've got young kids. Hey, I've got no kids. Hey, I've got dogs that are my kids. Like knowing the person in my head, if I truly get to know you, that's where I build credibility with a candidate. They should already trust that I'm not working for the brand if I don't know the brand. And it's not the case in a lot of situations, but I feel like that's the brand for me comes second. The person comes first.
And that person is not every person's going to be the right fit. Right?
Yep.
That's the thing. I think that a lot of us, and I'm including myself in that, because at some stage of my growth in this industry, you know, we've all sort of tried to force a square peg, something like that.
And, or the reverse, whatever.
Right. And it never works out. At some point in the process, even if they become a franchisee, it doesn't, my experience has been it's not worked out.
So, well, and the process creates credibility, right? Like if you're not following a process or a step or like gaining entry to the next level, I'm not building credibility with that person. Like then I truly am just selling you the used Ford Focus for $20,000 versus the $5,000 that it's probably worth. So then you are getting that lack of clarity, lack of credibility, lack of process means like no go. You should be asking then the questions, what am I missing? Like, what am I not asking?
Yeah, I think the things that we discover along in the process too about them, and this is such an understated skill, is listening, just listening, because that in and of itself can build credibility. Someone feels heard, back to that guy that started us all out in this business. When someone feels heard, they feel like they open up. That's been my experience with people.
And that's kind of what I think we're going to, not to give everything away in this, but that's the Dvelop Academy, like our training, our processes go into what does that mean? Like, how do you let someone know they've been heard? Like, and how do you genuinely relay that information? Obviously, we're not going to give those little nuggets away here, but the goal is to like help train developers who are either currently developing or help educate new people that want to get into this industry and say, how do I do what you do, Danielle? How do I do what you do, Chris? How do I do what other broker or other people do? It's like those are elements in the Dvelop Academy that we really like will take workshop opportunity to kind of dive in deeper. How do you let someone know that they've been heard? And genuinely do that. Like not from a sales tactic perspective. I mean, there are a lot of people teaching various sales items, but for us, development with a franchise concept is big. It's not a small amount of money, right? Like it's a life-changing decision. Taking one job or another job, that's changing, but this is forever life changing in so many ways. How can we be, you used a good word, how can we be a steward of that? How do we take a lay of the land and help people do that in the best possible way for themselves? And I think we both love what we do. So we want to help other people learn that craft per se, but then also understand it's a science. I think this is a debate that we all kind of have. Is it a craft? Is it a science? Is it a craft? Is it a science? Like, it's a marriage of all things that I think when we said, hey, let's talk about credibility, that's just something. Franchising is big but small, and it's taken us a long time to learn that. So we have credibility based on time in the industry. Does not mean that we're always so good at it either.
Yeah. I mean, but Scott Galloway is a guy I follow. He's a marketing professor at NYU. And he talks about, find something that you do that you can do really well and then do it. And you generate an income, you create a sustainable life for yourself, and then start doing those other passion things that you love doing too. Like for me, I kind of did it the other way around, which was, I got that creative element in the acting experience, and then family and home and all those things came about, and then all this shift occurred in me that I found something that I did really well even after, that sort of passion project phase of my life too. So
you took all the things that you've learned and molded them into, again, that's back to the topic, not to beat a dead horse. It's like, that's how you build credibility, is just being the human that you are, shared experiences, and then relaying that to somebody else and having that open dialogue. I'm excited about this topic. We've got many more to come. Thanks, Chris, for jumping on, and let's battle that out. Until next time. That's Chris Brown. I'm Danielle Wright, and we are here with the Dvelop Academy and Dvelop Plus. Feel free to check out our website. Join the Dvelop Plus community. It is a space where we share a lot of this information. You get access to a lot of franchise industry professionals, and we're super excited to see that continue to grow and build. And until next time, we will chat with you later.